Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to check out someone new, or at least someone new to me. His name is Gan, and he made a video called Why Are Women No Longer Having Kids? Now, we've recently made a video called The Family Falloff. I'll leave a link in the description down below for anyone that hasn't seen it to check it out. But I think it'd be interesting to see his perspective while we form our own. For those that have been appreciating the content, please consider subscribing, as it does help a lot. So without further ado, let's get into it. Why are women no longer having kids?
Why do you think a lot of young people aren't having kids?
Honestly, selfishness.
I've never ever wanted kids. It's a little bit selfish.
I feel like I just can't dedicate the time.
I gotta find the right lady first.
Do you think motherhood is looked down upon?
I think relationships do break from motherhood.
Having a feminine role in a family is looked down upon. You're a boss, bitch. You don't need no dude.
I think it's more of the women that are not wanting to have kids than it is men.
I'm actually going through a breakup right now.
Birth rates are at historic lows and everybody thinks they know why. They blame feminism, degeneracy to rising costs, but I think everybody has gotten it wrong. So I'll tell you what I think, but let's also explore what the solution is to support an increasingly aging population. Because is the answer in immigration, or is the future about to get a whole lot weirder? To find out, I talked to some pretty unexpected people. A sperm donor and a woman who just used one.
I didn't feel like I need to go through a partner just to have a baby. I wanted to be a single mother.
But first, let's hit the streets. Do you want kids?
No.
Why?
I've never ever wanted kids ever since I was little. People kept repeating to me, oh, you'll change your mind, you'll change your mind. Guess what? I'm almost 30, still haven't changed my mind. They cost a lot of money. The economy is and honestly, it's also like I feel always so excited to travel and do all these things. It just makes it so hard.
Yes.
Why?
I want to give them the life that I didn't have as a child. I grew up with a single parent, my mom raising me. It was a very toxic household, and I didn't get the love that I think I deserve, so I really want to give that to my kids, which is why dating is so important to me.
How's that going for you so far?
Horrible.
I'm actually going through a breakup right now.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Do you want kids?
Yes, I believe in God and Jesus, and he tells us to repopulate the earth. I also think there's a growing trend of people who don't want kids because they think that kids are destroying the planet, that we're overpopulated. I don't think that's true. The destroying of the family unit is so prevalent in every scope of society right now that it's almost rebellious to want to have kids.
How many kids do you want?
I want at least 4.
4?
At least
Damn.
I would want to bring kids into the world in an environment where both parents want children. And so for me personally, my wife doesn't want kids. And so that wouldn't be a good environment to bring a kid into, so it doesn't really matter to me.
I do want kids.
Why is that?
I feel like it's kind of like a legacy thing. As you know, I'm in my late 20s now, and it's not something I want tomorrow, but you start to think into the future and your life and just long term, and I feel like you can only leave so much of a legacy without having kids.
What do you think's stopping you from having kids right now then?
I gotta find the right lady first.
I did, and now I'm hesitant.
Why is that?
I think I've moved from yes to maybe because I want to feel financially stable in my life before I can bring a child into it. And then also, I want to feel a little bit more optimistic about the future.
The greatest blessing we can put on this earth is other children. So I believe it's our duty to have kids and spread everything we learn so we can learn from our mistakes and be better than the last generation.
I don't think I ever really wanted kids.
Why is that?
I did, probably when I was younger. And then as I got older, and then some of my friends were having kids, and I saw how big of a responsibility that was, felt like for my life and my kind of goals. Because I really want to be an entrepreneur. I feel like I just can't dedicate the time.
So say you're a successful entrepreneur already. After that, do you want kids and you have all the money in the world?
As of right now, no. But I haven't crossed that bridge, so I couldn't tell you.
So I actually made a video on this a few years ago, but the fact is birth rates have continued to drop, where by 2050, over 75% of the world will be below replacement levels of 2.1 children per woman. Do people just actually feel held back by financial reasons, or do they just not give a shit about babies anymore? Well, I looked into it, and this study of 4,400 millennials found the top 3 reasons why they're not having kids, and they're actually all economic. A lot of people are looking at family as a luxury that only the rich can afford. You can also just see this amongst the people that you may talk to or interact with, and even from the people that you expect to be the most pro-family. Like, look at this comment section of Brett Cooper's video reacting to my first video on birth rates, which literally got damn near the same amount of views, where I spent goddamn weeks making it, by the way. But anyways, what you're also seeing in her right-leaning audience comment section is a lot of people also saying that they don't want kids or feel like they can't really afford it. But then again, maybe the ones with families probably got better things to do than comment on a YouTube video.
Boom. Not to make the little Trump thing, but there it is. People that are too occupied with families are not on social media platforms. Not to say that they're not all on social media platforms, but majority of them are too preoccupied for this discussion. So it kind of looks like an echo chamber. Here's the second part. When he was interviewing her, at least at the start of it, you saw the broad scope of opinions and input and discussion. For those that did want kids, there was a dabble of altruism. Some people brought up religion. Some people brought up opportunities or potential because they didn't have it. And then another essence was, finding the right person to make this a reality. So more mature concepts. Okay. If we look at the people that said no, it started surface level, and the surface level was economy. They all typically would say economy. The economy is blah, but then they would hit on the real answer, I feel. And the real answer was, I'm too much in my own life right now. Now, why does that sound selfish? And I think the reason why that sounds selfish to some is because that means that they're too busy being self-serving to sacrifice anything that they currently have for another human being. Okay. Does that mean kids? No, it doesn't mean kids only. It also means relationships. That also means that they're not willing to sacrifice these elements of their current life for relationships either. Okay. The reason why it might not be perceived as selfish is because a lot of people have the perspective that they need to go through these check boxes in life before they reach the part where they deem boring. And obviously, a lot of people perceive families as boring. They're not drinking or getting drunk or doing drugs all the time now. It's boring. They're not in the nightlife anymore. They're not doing all these traveling trips with no ties or responsibility. They consider the idea of not doing that boring. And I think that when we're more tied to impulsive pursuits, those are typically more immature themes than mature themes. Mature themes are in correlation with responsibility and purpose, while immature themes are in correlation of feeling and fleetful pursuits or virtueless pursuits. At the end of the day, whether you're selfish or selfless, you need to come to terms with where you are in your maturity. It's probably going to answer that first 5 minutes of discussion, I feel like. And then obviously we'll go through the video and see what else happens.
Okay. But in all seriousness, as someone who absolutely want and will have kids in the future, I want to go beyond the obvious shit that everybody has fucking talked about in this topic and go even deeper. Pause. Because when I've seen some of the poorest families have kids while some of the richest don't, I don't think it's simply down to the money.
Growing number of married couples deciding not to have kids at all.
But at the same time, are there also some people that are taking having kids way too far?
It was fully just out of his free will to give me a baby, lifting my legs up in a position where it's all gonna work.
I guess you'll see.
Why do you think a lot of young people aren't having kids?
Honestly, selfishness, narcissism, not wanting their bodies to change long term, the financial burden. They just want money to buy stuff and live their life, which I understand to an extent, but really at the core, I think we're supposed to be selfless. And I think one of the most selfless things you can do is have a child.
Probably because of the economic downfall. Times are tough. The economy is rough. If they can afford it, they probably will. And I think this generation, definitely, people are getting married later. I don't know why, but it seems to be the case. I'm nowhere near getting married yet.
It's mostly money and time. The newer generation are realizing that they want more money to do more things to a certain degree.
I think in today's society, a lot of women are feeling more empowered to not stay in toxic relationships. Everything is temporary. You don't have to stay in something. What I'm trying to relay here is I think it's more of the women that are not wanting to have kids than it is men. I just hate social media personally, the ways that we interact, the ways that we date, the way that men view women more objectively because of like a lot of women themselves like objectifying themselves and like
Okay, so you're saying it's like a two-way issue.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
men that are doing that, but it's not like women are free from the blame as
for
well.
sure.
I think having kids is about like genuine love. And I think whenever we get over sexualized, we tend to look at women as just objects, and vice versa. Women look at us as just, a dick to hop on. The social aspect that we live in right now is very anti-nuclear family. The idea of, a woman and a man raising a family and the men being the head of household and the woman being the caretaker. I think that idea is kind of frowned upon nowadays. And I think that at its core is the best way to raise children and to have a family.
I think there's a masculine-feminine dynamic where women are more independent, and so they're not settling down. It's taking them later to settle down. I think a lot of men, when they meet a high-quality woman who's driven, who has a good job, is making good money, there's an intimidation factor there for a lot of men, especially if they don't have their shit together. The traditional path is, you go to school, you get a 9 to 5, you get married, you have kids. And I think more people today, with the rise of social media and technology and information, are questioning whether that is the right path for them and that's truly what they want.
Okay, so this actually brings me to my point, because I think a lot of people on the right like to blame this devaluing of the family, which is partly true, but what the hell does that even mean, right? Because in many ways, and I feel like I can say this as like a dual culture kid, America has always not really seen kids as assets, but more so liabilities that you kick out once they turn 18. And I think a lot of my international viewers will agree with me. So what I'm curious about is, why are American women more or less saying, fuck them kids? I think if you look here at the census data, it explains it. Because simply put, our generation is just moving a lot differently, a lot more cautiously, and growing up later, but for good reason. One reason is our generation has seen a lot of institutions fail, from the economic collapse to wars, and right now, we even have an all-time low trust in media. And that's exactly why I use my sponsor, Straight Arrow News. Straight Arrow News is a free app that highlights not only left and right-leaning opinions, but most importantly, gives me an unbiased view of stories from all sides. And trust me, I need sources that focus on facts and not the fluff and the BS. And it's exactly why I use it to research this exact video, as well as to write my newsletter. And so I genuinely stand by this sponsor, because when you download the free Straight Arrow News app, you're not just supporting me, you're also supporting a group of journalists that care and are dedicated to bridging this growing gap that's happening for every goddamn issue. So go to san.com/gen or use my link in the description to download the free app to stay fully
That was pretty smooth.
So
Okay.
what we're seeing here.
All right. So what he listed as the reasons for the fall off, war, and different societal issues, economic crisis, 1930s was very similar. I don't think we saw the fall off there, did we? Or at least it wasn't to the same extent. There's something else going on here. And I think it is the fall off of character. And I think that that's kind of what you're seeing. You're seeing more ego. You're seeing repetitive relationship dynamic where women are only dating up, even though women are now achieving more lately, or at least not in the sense that they're trying to run the world, or at least in most cases they're trying to run the world. Not like that. It's just women are more successful nowadays, whereas men are not as successful nowadays. And that creates some issues in the relationship dynamic, or at least with relationship choices. And then when it comes down to solidifying definitive ideas or decisions within the relationship, obviously that's not really hitting its mark either, because people are immature for longer now. And when they're immature for longer, they're going to be more self-serving for longer. They're going to have more excuses for longer. And with technology in the mix, Tinder brain, grass is always greener. Why solidify anything when I can have options? Exactly.
Is that since 1990, women are waiting a lot longer to have kids, as seen in the large percentage increase from 30 to 34, 35 to 39, and 40 to 44 even had a 132% increase since 1990. People are waiting a lot longer to have kids, but what impact will this have on the world? And I looked into this further, and it shows that only 10% of women were childless by choice. The other 10% for medical reasons, and the most common reason affecting this 80% of women is that they waited too long to have children. So if the data is not lying, this shows that majority of women do want kids at some point in their lives. But 80% is pretty big, man. So this got me thinking that this must mean that at least some of these people were influenced to suppress their desires.
Do you think motherhood is looked down upon?
I think actually a lot of people, at least from my perspective, a lot of people end up seeing motherhood as like their main purpose, their biggest purpose in life. I, on the other hand, haven't had that calling, so I can't speak for myself, but I don't think it's looked down upon. I think relationships do break from motherhood.
No, but I think having a feminine role in a family is looked down upon. It goes into the music industry. You have artists like Sexy Red and Megan Thee Stallion pushing the idea of, you know, you're a boss bitch, you don't need no dude, which by all means do that. But I think that being in girls' heads, that type of mom isn't a good mom. A good mom accepts that she's the caregiver. I think there has to be roles. There has to be balance. And
Accepting of her strengths.
men and women are both losing that idea of balance.
But when having
And I think the reason why she hasn't had that calling is because she probably hasn't had the relationship that brings confidence to that calling. And I think that that's really what you're seeing. Is kind of something that I like to discuss is relational failure and the primary, secondary, tertiary effects of relational failure. And one of the primary effects of relational failure, I mean, regardless of someone is attractive or not, they're typically going to if they have poor choices or poor self-regulation, they're going to end up in relationships that they probably shouldn't be in, or be in relationships with bad actors, or maybe they're a bad actor themselves, but they victimize themselves. So that way it doesn't seem that way. But then they go ahead and get into these relationships, get in these relationships with losers or psychopathic men that just constantly reiterate that there's no way that I'm ever going to trust a man enough for me to think that being a mother is a good idea.
2 kids with a husband and wife quickly shifts from being normal to more of a luxury, other options are obviously going to become a lot more popular. So now I was curious to talk to someone who really wanted to have kids, and at the same time, someone who really wanted to be a single mother. And all I could think about is this going to be the future?
Nice to meet you, Sophie. I've interviewed a lot of different types of perspectives on this channel so far, but this might be the most interesting. You're currently pregnant, and you did it through unconventional ways.
I felt like going to a sperm bank, the doctor might use his own sperm.
Does that happen?
Yeah, this happens quite a few times for a lot of people, unfortunately. I have seen a lot of things like that, which scared me a bit, so I thought I definitely didn't want to really go down that road, and I didn't feel like I need to have to go just to have a partner, you know, relationship or marriage, just to have a child. That's not something I thought that I wanted to do, and I'm not getting younger.
You're only 24, 25. What is kind of like the big rush? I know, yes, women have like a biological clock, but you still have time.
I felt ready. I'm in a secure place now in myself, in my life. I didn't feel like rushing straight away to a sperm donor, wanting it right now, but it come along my path, and I felt like, okay, do you know what? This is the right time. I'm at the right stage in life.
So we'll get to the guy who got her pregnant in just a minute, but first I wanted to know how she even got in contact with him.
I found him on Instagram, and I wanted to know a bit more, so I had quite a lengthy video chat with him to make sure he was actually real as well. He suggested and offered me to go straight to where he was. He said he'd pay the tickets for me to go to him, or that he could come to me. And obviously in my schedule it worked better for him to come here. So
he flew to London.
Yeah, he even offered to pay my tickets to go to London.
Did you guys have any contracts? You guys didn't exchange any money?
No, we didn't exchange any money. There was no contract signing. It was fully just out of his free will to offer to give me a baby.
So was it through kind of like a insemination, or did you guys actually engage in activities?
It was through NI.
What does that mean?
Natural.
Got it. Interesting.
And it didn't take long. It was very quick. It was less than half an hour, and lifting my legs up and in a position where it's all gonna work.
Do you think people look down on the method that you did?
I think definitely people would criticize my way of doing it, because they would see it as, oh, well, you shouldn't do that, you should probably like get married or have a partner just to have a child, and it's not something I wanted to do. Like, I had a bad relationship. I was in a relationship for nearly 10 years, and that was my first relationship, and it sort of scared me and put me off, and I didn't feel like I want to go into another relationship just to have a child, which is something I really wanted to be as a mother. I wanted to be a single mother and raise my child the best way I can.
And well, here it is. This is the guy who got Sophie pregnant.
My name is Kyle Gordy, and I'm a sperm donor. So I'm not a sperm donor at a bank. I actually donate my sperm directly to people. I have traveled the entire world. I've been to Australia, all over Asia, Europe, and currently I'm in the United Kingdom. I have kids in all these places.
What got you into this, and why do you do this?
So I got into it because I didn't know if I ever was going to have any kids of my own. It was very sad. And, obviously I'm still open to a relationship if the right blog for watching this. Hey, ladies, I'm putting it out there. And so that's why I kind of got into getting sperm, because I never knew.
So let me ask you this. I heard from Sophie that you were even willing to buy her flights and that it was actually completely free. So it seems like it's not even like a monetary incentive. I guess, is this what you do full time? How do you support yourself? And really, why do you do this?
I think it's not about me, like, having a kid. I think it's more about, like, I think it's about the next person. She doesn't have a child today. She wants a child. I think it's a lot, like, very deep. I guess if you have kids, probably would understand.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
know.
It's hard to understand. But if you have kids, I think you'd understand.
So look, I'm gonna keep it real because whenever I'm feeling biased or strongly about something, I'm gonna tell you. That interview was probably one of the weirdest fucking interviews I've ever had. I don't know about you, but I just felt like uneasy talking to him. And look, who can say shit if he's doing this consensually and the other partner is all aware of it? But honestly, doesn't bro just have like a breeding fetish? Anyways, let's move on to...
That's exactly my point. So in reference to his product, I don't believe in the authenticity of it by any means. No, I think that it's a way of targeting people who have relational failure. And I think that kind of proved it with Sophie, I believe. Here's the thing about women thinking that that's a good idea. I recommend that you look at studies of raising children without a father. And then I suggest that you also look at studies of how single mothers fare in relationships with a child that doesn't have a father present. Now, she said she was 24, 25 years old and thinking that she knew enough about the world to have a child. My question was obviously, are you doing this because this is just what you feel at the time? And if so, how likely is it that that drive to be a mom is going to press forward? It seemed momentous to me. I mean, maybe y'all can hit me in the comment section down below of like what your perspective was of it, but it just seemed shallow. I think the desire to be a mom is, or the idea of wanting to achieve the idea of motherhood, that's phenomenal. However, wanting to do it by yourself, to me, that either seems like you don't know what that does to children, or you have a complete and utter ego surrounding what you think you're capable of. Like, no, I don't need anyone. I can do this on my own, in the sense that there's essentially an ego drive of what someone is capable of and what they envision themselves doing without ever realizing that maybe they don't, and maybe they can't, and maybe this isn't something that they're capable of. But because they have this ideology of themselves, this is something that they feel they can accomplish regardless. And then obviously the other side is not realizing what that does to children. It makes them incredibly impressionable without a father. It makes them more likely for various and significant amounts of negative outcomes. And why do you think that single children of single mothers are typically the government babies? Because it's typically society that raises them and not the parents or the household. You guys let me know in the comments down below. I understand that not all children born under single mothers are doomed. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea that you have this fixation that only you should do it because of relational failure, I feel like the purpose is derived from something bad, and I don't think we should ever carry out actions on the basis of a regret. Like, here's this thing that sucked in my life, and this is what I'm going to do because of that. It's like, no, we should have learned from something, applied it in a different light, and then allow something to grow from the success we found atop our failure, instead of, I'm going to X this box out of my life completely and make this work regardless. I don't know. It's maybe I'm wording it poorly or something, but it was just something about it that I didn't agree with.
The most important question or topic that I wanted to explore in this video. But before we do, sign up for our free weekly newsletter, because if you like this video, I think you'll like this even more, because what we do is we deliver the one big story you need to know without the bias, all just in 5 minutes. But anyways, what I wanted to ask is this. What do you think is like the biggest threat to humanity? Do you think it's overpopulation or population collapse?
Overpopulating anywhere, it always seems to be much bigger of a problem than less population, even though the population runs the economy. But that's my personal thought.
I think the idea that overpopulation exists is a complete lie. I don't think overpopulation is a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing, but I don't think it's a problem in today's world. When you really dive into how much open land we have, how much food we waste every year, there's plenty to go around. It's a wealth distribution problem.
Aging population, it's not having enough kids to sustain the economy as we age out. By the time we're old, there aren't going to be enough kids to take care of us in the retirement homes.
Probably population collapse. That would be like underpopulation, right? Yeah.
If it were to be between the two, I would say population collapse. But honestly, I think we're in a fallen state in this world. The only battle we have right now is against evil.
So I think the question keeps returning to, are we cooked?
She has
by the looks of it,
deep
when
concepts.
every country by the year 2100 is set to decline in population, yeah, it does look like we're getting cooked. And y'all remember this graph? Because when we look even closer, even though we established earlier that older women are having more kids, it actually doesn't even come close to offsetting the drop in birth rates for young women aged 25 to 29.
Which young women don't have to have children. I don't think that's a necessity. I think, if anything, to use your 20s to really find a sense of maturity in yourself, and then spend time with the right person to solidify the idea of what a family would bring. You know, I think that's pretty good. But the idea that overpopulation is worse than population collapse is just outrageous to me. Overpopulation is an extension. We've been built to extend, regardless of the data that was trying to show off in 2016, I believe, of how it's going to contribute to climate change. Even though climate change is like this, it's not constantly rising. Population collapse means that it's a regression in infrastructure. I don't think people really understand the damage that causes. And it's basically the people that are alive today, their livelihood in old age is now going to get worse and worse and worse because of this issue. And it's just, there's a lot of data out there, and I suggest some people check out the differences between the two, because it's a lot of it's some pretty good reads.
20 to 24, and look at finally 15 to 19 with a 72 negative drop. When you consider things like the biological clock, no wonder they're not able to offset it, and birth rates are plummeting. But even though this all sounds cooked, there is at least some positives. Teen pregnancies have plummeted since 1990, where back then a third of those pregnancies would have been unplanned and with low-income women who were not ready to have kids. And so there's that, and I can stop it there, but no, what this investigation revealed is that we're not cooked. And it does go beyond the obvious, like rising costs. Sure, money absolutely matters, right? That complicates things. But what we're actually facing is something a little bit more abstract. What I would say is a generational global crisis of confidence and purpose. Look, it sounds corny, but let me explain. I mean, think about it. We're a generation of kids who've grown into adulthood jaded than any other generation before. We grew up feeling like liabilities and burdens rather than feeling like assets to our parents' economy and planet. And we saw institutions that were supposed to be here for us to deliver us stability and prosperity, governments, corporations, educational systems fail over and over again and end up as hollow, corrupt, and self-interested as we are. And what I mean is that in a world where we seemingly have unlimited options at our fingertips, from career, lifestyle, sexualities, and communities, we lack any sort of purpose. And instead of dedicating ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves so we can build an even better generation for the future, we're secretly operating and being blinded in action by the illusion of choice. But at the end of the day, survival. Because why would you gamble on tomorrow when the system feels rigged and today already feels so uncertain? And so when someone like Sophie grew up as an orphan, and I'm sure she had her fair share of difficulties that I can't even imagine, can we blame her for wanting her kids on her terms and controlling an outcome that's usually been the most unpredictable? So it made me think, is this single mother by choice going to be the future? You're based in the UK. I think UK's fertility rates have been dropping year over year, and now it's below replacement levels like a lot of the Western societies. Do you think this way of having children is going to become a lot more popular?
Definitely, I think so. A lot of people in the world, especially women, feel that there's not a lot of good relationships out there. And obviously, what's the point in waiting forever just for the perfect relationship, just to have a family?
So honestly, I'm not sure what will happen before we all get replaced by AI sex bots, but I do know one thing. And it's that when it comes to societal problems, I've done this long enough where if you follow the money, you'll often find the answer. Governments declare low birth rates as emergencies, not because they care about culture or tradition. It's about money. And fewer children mean fewer future taxpayers to support an older population. And it's exactly why I think issues like illegal immigration will always exist in the US, no matter what party. Because the truth is, the US will collapse without the inexpensive labor that we use. So no matter who you voted for, there's no real incentive to actually solve that problem. And if you don't believe me, look, that's fine. I mean, look around the world. Just this year, one of the world's most isolationist and homogenous societies, Japan, one of my home countries, allowed the highest number of immigrants ever.
There aren't enough people coming into the construction sector, so we decided to hire more foreigners.
So yes, a lot of the immigrants were brought in legally as skilled labor, but when Japan's doing this, is this the solution?
I don't know what a good solution to that would be. Giving people the opportunity to come here and be able to add to that would be good too.
A lot of people are anti-immigration, but you got to recognize, like, for example, it can boost the economy. It can help people.
I think people are strapped for cash, but I think more people are starved for hope. We're somehow more aware yet more jaded, and we're endlessly scrolling looking for evidence that the world isn't what it promised us to be. And for the longest time, I was the same way, man. I never see myself getting married or having kids. Why be tied down when I have all the freedom in the world with this job? But just like anything, with all freedom and no responsibility, what does success mean without any sort of meaning? Because I've met way too many rich people who have everything except the family, and I'm willing to bet all their money that they would trade it all for a family. Because what I realized even building this channel is that hard work means so much more when it's not just for me, just how I want to change how society approaches issues. Similarly, I see fatherhood the same way, of pushing it forward for the next generation. But in the end, it's your call. And choosing to have children or not should never feel selfish if it's truly your decision. But always ask yourself, are you choosing freely, or are you part of the statistic that's being nudged away from something that's inherently human? Because in a sea of everything's cooked and the world is going to shit, let's start by making our own choices rather than listening to some narrative or some fucking influencer. Because only then can we change how society approaches issues. So last little yap, if you want to support me, download the free SAN app. They're awesome. And one way you can also support me directly is by joining our free weekly newsletter, Bridging the Gap, where we show you the one big story that you need to know every single week. That's it. If you like my yap sesh, subscribe. And if you want to see me yap more, you'll like this video too.
All right, so that was Gen's video on why women are not wanting children anymore. And damn, it almost seems like you watched my video. But the overarching point that I'm getting in a lot of cases is, one, you have surface level reasons, as I discussed earlier. And then a lot of the times, the real reasons rise to the surface. Inadequacy, responsibility, selfishness, things that shine a light on where we are not yet, who we are not yet. And I think that a lot of people think that having children in your 30s is because they hit their check boxes. And I'm gonna tell you, like I've said in previous videos and in my own videos, that's not what the studies suggest. That's not what the data suggests. The data suggests that people mature. The data suggests that people find the right person. The data suggests that people don't find equivalent purpose outside of families like they thought they were going to. Is what it is. So what does that mean? Ages from 30 to 35, you're about to see a running theme of having children. Now, the reasons why the inadequacy exists amongst people who are concerned about having kids, well, they think the world is too far gone to believe or have confidence in their ability to parent children in the face of it. And what that means is that they don't think enough of themselves to know that they can have children, have them out in the world, and not be tainted by the things that exist, or be destroyed by the things that exist, or be manipulated, be used, whatever. The one challenge that I have to everybody is the world isn't your home, and your home isn't the world. Who you are will be indicative of the home that you provide to your children. Allow that to mean far more than what the world can provide. And know that should you have children, any crack in your armor, the world's going to use against you. So I suggest the idea of obtaining maturity or an admirable state of maturity be the priority before having children, before finding that partner, and then allowing that to flourish and cultivate into something. Because I get it, relationships nowadays, more than likely, they're going to fail, or they're going to suck, or be with the wrong person. Wolf in sheep's clothing. A lot of the times people are more deceptive than ever. They're more manipulative than ever. They're more psychopathic than ever. And I get it. All right. So guess what that means for you? That doesn't mean you quit on any step. That just means you try on error. And you either win or you learn. And the idea of losing is only for the sake of people that waste their time in the lessons that they've been taught. You got a lot of opportunities, a lot of moments and points in your life where you can achieve a better sense of character. And like he said, not to get all corny, even though it's not really corny, I think that's just the depth of human potential. And I believe that we do ourselves a great disservice splashing around in the knee-high water when there's an abyss out on the horizon. I think the explorative nature of human beings has been consistent. It's been a constant to want to know more, just in general, either about something or about yourself. And I think it's cowardly to not seek it out, regardless of whatever excuse you may have. And that's not in the essence of condemning the people that don't. No, I don't think that we've ever really condemned anybody in reference to what they think is going on at the time. But what I do think it is necessary judgment. And a lot of people perceive judgment as this poor, negative monster, this pessimistic thing. It's like, no, judgment is natural. It occurs in every person's life. It happens when you look at people walking down the street. Judgment is a natural cognition that we all do. But that doesn't mean we condemn people. And I think that judgment has been synonymous to condemnation when that's not the case. We're not condemning people when we look at them, but we do judge. And sometimes someone's judgment of our own character is necessary. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen it. And the last thing that I'm going to get into is this constant running theme of why should you get married? Boy, a lot of people believe relationship, cultivation, marriage, children. Okay. A lot of people want to forego the idea of marriage. Why? Piece of paper. Don't want the government involved. They don't need a legal document to prove their love. Yeah, I can see that. I can agree with the idea of not wanting the government involved, not wanting certain things involved, and not to be bound by anything that is a third party to you. Okay. Here's a perspective. And this isn't because I completely agree in marriage. It's just because I know the values of it. In a world where everything is temporary, and in a world where everything is inconsistent, flip-flopping, and the grass is always greener, you got people with tender brain, and the options are constantly arising. You're trying to have this little piece of sanctity and peace in the world that you believe is crooked. you're going to want as many things to bind you two together as possible in the face of that. It's kind of like having as many knots surrounding your body, keeping you tied to the ship as you travel through the storm, so to make sure you don't fall off. And I think that coming to an agreement, not only in the essence of emotion or love, but also doing that in front of your peers and family, and then in addition doing that in front of the eyes of the state or country, you're creating several different admittance to your commitment to the other person, and you're doing it as much as you can because you're creating little minor lines in the sand that have to get broken through before everything falls apart. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone perceives marriage that way. A lot of people just perceive it as this thing to do and it's her day, right? Which is obviously a bad idea if you're ever going to get married and it's for the sake of a woman having her day. You probably should get a different woman. But when it comes down to the idea of aesthetic, yes, I get it. That's going to be a concept too. The idea of, I just like the idea of getting married. I don't actually want to be married. I don't actually want the responsibilities or the duty, nor do I want to sacrifice anything, but I do want the image for the day. And I want to be able to tell people that this is what happened in my life because it means that my status is greater than theirs, or it is now comparative to theirs. And I get that too, you know, and we've seen divorce rates be astronomically high in recent society, and that's just like, damn, there's a lot of going on there. But I think that again hit it on the point. There is an absolute absence of character in today's society, an absolute absence of purpose, maturity. We are not reaching the levels of admirable people that we used to, and it's really showing. It is really showing. Now, a lot of people can blame that on whatever. Check out my video. Little sneak peek. I kind of go over it, but I think he hit the nail on the head in reference to a lot of things. And I appreciate that he provided a lot more than just one side, because although people typically provide both sides, you can tell who they're going to. And I think that in the case of that Sophie person who got the child, you know, this is her check in the box. I kind of spoke my piece, but I don't think you're ever really thinking about the child's life when you think that you can do things on your own. Children need their fathers. Children need their mothers. Don't forego one or the other out of your own pride. All I gotta say about that. So with that being said, thank you to everyone for watching the video. If you liked the video, like it. If you appreciate the content so far, consider subscribing. It does help a lot. If you dislike the video, then dislike it. Hopefully you never see me again, but leave a comment in the comment section down below for what you think about some of the topics and things that either I covered or Gen covered as he went throughout the discussion of the video. He interviewed a lot of people. Give your thoughts on that as well. I look forward to seeing some of your perspectives. Like always, let's keep it authentic and respectful by all means. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the link for that video that I made, the Family Falloff, will be in the description down below. Check it out if you want. But I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks again, and I'll go ahead. See you next time.